Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. Hopefully I have some good questions on this edition of One-on-One. I'm pleased to be joined by Brian Carovillano, who is Managing Editor, Associated Press. Good to have you with us.
Thanks. Good to be here.
For those who don't know what the AP is, go ahead. It is?
The AP is an independent news agency that is a membership cooperative of U.S. news organizations, but we cover the world in a totally nonpartisan way. And we are in 250 locations around the world, including places that no other news organization is really present, like North Korea and Iran. We are in all 50 states, including all 50 state houses, and our content appears in 15,000 news outlets around the world and reaches, by some estimates, half the world's population.
We're taping in the fall of 2019, early in October. It is, in fact, the anniversary of the murder, the assassination of a Washington Post columnist in Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. Significant, that murder, that assassination, the lack of a follow-up, in the context of how journalism is seen, not just in this country and viewed by the Trump administration, but also around the world. Am I conflating things there?
Yeah, it's a horrific tragedy. Standing on its own, the Khashoggi murder is a terrible thing that happened, that a journalist was targeted and murdered for his work, and specifically for his work as a columnist, as an opinion columnist that was seen by the Saudi government as critical of the government.
And the CIA in our country said it was them.
Yeah, there's a lot of intelligence that indicates that it was them. I don't think even Mohammed bin Salman is denying that his government carried out the murder. He's just saying that he had nothing to do with it. So taken on its own, it's a horrific tragedy. Taken as part of a larger global trend about how journalism is viewed by governments and by extension by people around the world, it's part of this really troubling trend over the last decade or so, which certainly didn't begin with the Trump administration, in which public trust in news media has been on the decline. There's plenty of data to show that. And I think what we're seeing now is that leaders around the world feel more emboldened to treat journalists in ways that were unthinkable even a generation ago. And it's part of that trend. It's perhaps the most extreme or one of the most extreme extensions of that trend. But it's not unique to Saudi Arabia or to Turkey or to any of the places.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Let's put this in context. I'm thinking about the 2016 presidential campaign and on. Mm-hmm. And believe what you will, like the president, don't like the president, it's your business. We are here to ask tough questions and look at the facts and try to make sense of them. When the president started during the campaign to turn around in a rally with thousands of people, 20,000 people, point at the media and say they are the enemy of the people, they are fake news, and in some people's eyes, communicated a message that being hurtful to them, physically and any other way, fair game, unfair characterization?
Well, I don't want to get too much into the characterization, but I think it's scary.
No,
because
my characterization, he said they're the enemy of the people.
Right.
He said what they say is a lie, and they are our enemy in this country.
And it's rhetoric that we're not used to hearing in this country. We cover, as I said earlier, the world, and we operate in some very dangerous places, and we have to send journalists into those places with equipment to ensure their safety, things like flak jackets and helmets and that sort of thing. We now, for a variety of reasons, are having the same kind of conversations about covering events that happen in this country that we are in the southern Philippines or in Afghanistan or even in Yemen. And I never thought that we'd get to that point, but that's the situation that we're in. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into that.
Are we responsible in any way in the media for how a significant number of folks feel about us and don't trust us?
Sure. I mean, I think some of the media's wounds are absolutely self-inflicted. I think the race to the polls, in terms of, everybody's on one side or the other. The value of nonpartisan, straight-down-the-middle journalism doesn't seem to be seen as much of a revenue producer as producing opinion-focused journalism.
People yelling at each other on the air with two extreme polar points of view. And no disrespect to our friends at CNN, MSNBC, Fox, whoever, but I know what we're going to get there.
Right.
I mean, does that help?
Well,
does that help having?
It's part of this. This has been going on for a long time, and it's part of a larger trend. And I think Trump and other world leaders have capitalized on what was already happening, which was a decline in public trust in the media, and they saw an opportunity there to capitalize on it, and they've done a good job of that. And I think it's accelerated and it's advanced the decline in public trust in the media. And I think there have been plenty of instances in which the media hasn't necessarily helped itself, and I think that goes back a couple decades. But there are hundreds of thousands of good journalists around the world who are doing their jobs, often putting their lives at risk, because they believe in the mission. And they believe that the most important thing to do at times like this, when you're faced with relentless criticism, is stay the course and do what you do and believe that that will make a difference over time.
And the AP, the credibility of your organization.
I mean, the AP is at the center of that. I mean, we feel like our credibility is all we have. We don't sell newspapers. We don't broadcast shows. We don't sell advertising for the most part. And our business is built on credibility. And so to trade that in at any given point, it's something you could never get back. And we talk about that and we think about that all the time. Do we get it right 100% of the time? No. Sometimes we make mistakes just like everybody else does. But I would say we are relentlessly nonpartisan and we try to be as fair as we possibly can in our journalism. But that's not the same as the sort of both sidesism that you sometimes see out there, which is like, here's one side of the story, here's the other side of the story. Usually somewhere in there is the truth. And what we try to get at is the truth.
We're talking with Brian Carovillano, who is managing editor, Associated Press, if you're listening on the radio side, audio side. Question, social media. A lot of people say, hey, listen, I don't need the AP. I don't need public broadcasting. I don't need the New York Times. I can get what I need on the internet, social media. I get all the information I want and need, you say?
Yeah, look, there's plenty of credible information on social media, most of it provided by news organizations that are investing in news gathering. So if you're going to use social media to get your news, you should still be aware of what are the brands you trust, who are the reporters you trust, what are the names of the people that you feel like are accurate sources of information, and what are those organizations. And if you're getting them on social media, fine, but if you're accessing just sort of random rants from your crazy uncle on social media, that's probably not a credible source of information, right?
Or looking for information that just reinforces what I think.
Right.
Listen, before I let you go, Brian, talk about this climate change series.
Yeah, the AP employs some of the world's greatest photo and visual journalism. If you look at some of the most iconic images in history, a lot of them are shot by AP photojournalists. And what we've decided to do this year is really turn them loose on the story of climate and the environment in a way that we never have before. To just try and tell the story visually and in pictures and in video instead of in a whole lot of text, because a lot of climate coverage seems to be really easy for people to tune out. It's undeniably, in my opinion, the most important story of our time. The most important story of our time. This is our planet. And yet, journalism on climate has not done particularly well with audiences because we've had 30 years of doomsday prognostications, and it's easy for people to tune that out. They feel like they can do nothing about it. So our series, which is called What Can Be Saved, leans into two things.
What Can Be Saved is the name of the series.
What Can Be Saved, yeah, leans really heavily into two things. One is, as I said, stunning visual experiences and the people in the places where they live who are trying to do something about the crisis in their place. And so it's a people story, it's a visual story, it's really worth checking out. It's pretty spectacular journalism.
Brian's got it right. In many people's eyes, this is, in fact, the issue of our times. And even though some folks are playing catch-up, we appreciate what the AP is doing. Here in public broadcasting, we're very much involved in comprehensive coverage of climate change. And also the folks at NJ.com and North Jersey Media, check them out. They're doing it as well. But again, we have a lot of work to do. Brian, I want to thank you for joining us. And to you and your colleagues at the Associated Press, who every day go out there and report the news with no agenda, no point of view, no objective other than to help our country be as strong as it can be with a strong media. We thank you.
Yep, thank you. It's good to be here.
Same here. I'm Steve Adubato. This is One on One. We'll be right back.
One on One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Russell Berry Foundation, Englewood Health, the law firm of Gibbons PC, New Jersey Resources, Caldwell University, ADP, and by Kessler Foundation. Promotional support provided by NJ.com and by New Jersey Family Magazine and NJFamily.com. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.